Actually, if we're going through a feedback saying I would be getting a $0 refund. It's a that well. Draw down from that rate. But go back and redo it again. Got it right the second time.
Oh, so you fixed it?
That place.
Okay, I think we're going to go get started now. Finally. Oh, good. I get to hear. We don't need that right this minute. All right. All right. Thanks everybody for being here today. This is the first opportunity we had for trying a hybrid meeting. So we are live streaming on YouTube and this is on Zoom. And welcome, Sean. Thank you for joining us. All right. One of the first things is we have our Darwin Day Food Bank volunteer thing coming up on the 12th. And I have a sign up sheet for those that have not signed up but would like to. And I'm kind of tight in here. And it's going to be the February the 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. And we're supposed to be doing food boxes this time.
Yeah.
I know last time we did like the Project PJ thing.
Oh, is it at the same place?
Yeah, at the same place, right? It's at 526 High Street. It's over near where the train station is. If people are familiar with that area. It's if you go to the event page on the website, there's a map and if you have any problems with it, just let me know and I'll give you directions. Uh, 526 High Street. It's over near where the train station is. If people are familiar with that area. It's if you go to the event page on the website, there's a map and if you have any problems with it, just let me know and I'll give you directions. And then we have the 27th, I think is the book club. 22nd. 27th is the Nick and Jimmy's at 5:30 p.m. Those are the things that are coming up. And then we have the summer picnic. We have the venue confirmed. It's going to be June 21st at the Ottawa shelter on North Cove over by the hospital. If people know where that's at. And so we have that thanks to Ann, we have that reserved for the whole day. And that would be different because it's going to be closer. It's a city park and it's not on Father's Day. So hopefully you'll be able to show up. Stuff's not working. Anyway, does anybody have any announcements that they want to make? Anything that you guys got coming up that you'd like everybody to know about? No? Okay.
Well, Doug and I are working on a mailing. I Kevin in as a local treasurer. I'm gonna buy a list with parameters and send out a postcard in, just to see if we can pull in more numbers, get more interest.
All right. Well, I have some video clips that I kind of wanted to show, but maybe I can't. Because my computer's not working right. Hey, Derek, I'm sorry, I'm tied in here. Could you give me that soft bag there on the seat? Yeah. Thank you very much. That's why I knew something like this would happen. So I brought it back up.
In Ohio, well, Lucas County, we're supposed to be supposedly the most liberal in the state. And it really worries me, our library, how terrific it is with inclusivity, and the museum has made great strides in welcoming people in from the surrounding neighborhood. And even thinking, about the symphony last night, I mean, Stuart Goodyear is one of the, a premier young pianist, and he had his composition on it, and these kind of things are, the museum, what other, facility was I thinking about? And we just hate for the people in Columbus to start looking and saying, we're gonna come in and, manage your programs or tell you what you can program and what you can't program. And that's really scary because, like, in the field of contemporary classical music, African Americans have made great strides in getting their music played, and being recognized for what they bring to the table. And I would just hate to see how that somebody come in and say, and especially with something like the arts that is also very subjective. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, I just don't like that, kind of thing. So it's scary. I think if people get their hands on our library, and its collections and its programs.
Okay. Here's the first clip. This is that bishop that asked Trump to have mercy when she was on the.
Did you decide to make that appeal the way you did, to ask him for mercy in that way?
Well, as you summarized so well, as I was thinking about toward the end of my preparation, the pillars of unity, it struck me that I was missing one, and that last one was mercy, to have mercy and compassion. And rather than state it in sweeping terms, I thought I would acknowledge to the president, that he had come to the highest office of the land that he had millions of people had entrusted him with this power. And I wanted to make, as you heard, a plea, a request that he broaden his characterization of the people that are frightened now and are at risk of losing everything. And I thought that that would be the more respectful way to say it, and also to appeal to not only the president, but to all who might be listening, to appeal to what we know to be true about our immigrant neighbors, who they are, the kind of people that we're blessed to be among, and to remember them in our understanding of what it means to be America.
Next one.
That was Reverend Buddy, right?
Yeah, Episcopal, I think she's a Episcopal minister at the National Cathedral. And now this is everything that President Trump has said about the LGBT community.
You leave it the way it is. There have been very few complaints the way it is. People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate.
So if Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump Tower and want to use the bathroom, you would be fine with her using any bathroom she chooses?
That is correct.
A radical Islamic terrorist targeted the nightclub, not only because he wanted to kill Americans, but in order to execute gay and lesbian citizens because of their sexual orientation. It's a strike at the heart and soul of who we are as a nation.
A friend of mine called up, he said, you know, you don't get enough credit because in Palm Beach, you opened a club that nobody would do, and it's open to everybody. It's open to everybody. And a person, a member of the club, great guy, who's gay, wrote this magnificent letter saying what Donald Trump did, nobody else would do. I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Believe me.
Do you support marriage equality?
It's irrelevant because it was already settled. It's law. It was settled in the Supreme Court. I mean, it's done.
So even if you appoint a judge that...
It's done. You have, these cases have gone to the Supreme Court. They've been settled. And I think I'm fine with that.
This is recent. And I got another one. All right, this is from Right Wing Watch. Yeah.
Very life.
I don't want to oversell this, but I believe this.
All right. This kind of janky thing. I don't know why it's like that. But the blonde lady on the left is Janet Porter. She is, if you've been living in Ohio for a long time, you would know who she is. She's an anti-abortionist, right-wing zealot. She helped author the 6-week abortion ban, the heartbeat bill, and pushed it through the Ohio legislature. So that's what she does. That's her job now, her career. And in this thing, this is a conference of the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, founded by zealotly anti-LGBTQ, anti-choice former Arkansas state legislator Jason Ruppert. It regularly holds conferences at which Republican leaders like House Speaker Mike Johnson and religious right activists plot strategy about how to enact their political agenda, largely through model legislation that is specifically designed to be taken home by participating state legislators and turned into law. The right wing does this a lot for a lot of things. There's ALEC and Project Blitz and this, and that's what they do. They have these big conferences. They say, if you want to stick it to some marginalized group, this is how you do it. And they teach them that. And in this one, this particular conversation she's having, she's talking about turning the text of the 6-week heartbeat bill and doing it to prosecute librarians and teachers for teaching about transgender people. And she also talks about it and laughs about making it so that parents can sue teachers and librarians, and if they win, they get money, but if they lose, the teachers and the librarians don't get their legal fees. And they craft it, it's based on a Texas law. So, but I just wanted to kind of give some context to that.
Could be the next heartbeat bill. And it started with the library bill, and we've been trying for a couple of years. I worked with Senator Rapert 2 years ago. We tried to get it in a special session in Arkansas. The clock ran out. I tried to get it going in the state of West Virginia. It didn't quite happen. But we met with Jonathan Mitchell just recently and with Representative Bentley. And essentially what this would do is just as Mary said, the heartbeat bill protects them in the womb, protects children in the womb. This child protection bill will protect them in the classroom. So when I first met with Jonathan Mitchell, he's the guy that came up with the civil penalty saying, hey, citizens can sue if they don't follow the Texas heartbeat law. And I'm just going to be very transparent with you. When I first heard this, I thought, nah, man, I really like the criminal penalty. I like the idea of making abortionists felons because then they lose their medical license. But I said, all right, we're going to try it. There you are, Senator. God bless you. And so we tried the Texas heartbeat bill, and it worked. And I was suspicious even after it was enacted. I had people call. We called around to the abortion mills in Texas, and what do you know? When there was a threat of a lawsuit, when it might cost them $10,000 personally, they stopped killing children. And so, what if, instead of us putting out all these fires in this library and in this school and in this county, what if we stopped it at the source? What if we put together a bill that says, hey, guess what? If you're involved in any kind of grooming, by the way, what's happening in the schools right now, teachers are giving in this agenda, they're giving kids assignments, role play. We'd like you to pretend like you're attracted to the same gender. Oh, now we're going to give you extra credit if you go to the Pride Parade. Oh, hey, how about this? We're going to put a reading list together so mom and dad won't see it as a school book, but your suggested reading is pornography for your teenager. And by the way, one of the other things this bill does, and Jonathan made it clear in the library setting, it's also in the classroom setting, that if you don't tell mom and dad what Johnny and Susie are reading, then you're liable to the lawsuit. All right, it's not as catchy as if a heartbeat's detected, the baby's protected. But here's what we have. We're working on our marketing, but here's what I've got so far. If there's grooming, a lawsuit is looming. That's where we are right now. And by the way, this addresses the transvestites, the drag queen story hour. It's the outside speaker that they bring in from GLAAD or from Planned Parenthood or from whatever the name they pick for the latest homosexual activist group. It is the way, in my opinion, and I came out of, we talked about what is birthed out of prayer. I had been praying for years, how do we address the alphabet mafia? you know, the LGBT, QRSTD. How do we go after that and get it out of our schools? Get this, if we can't put the 10 Commandments in front of the classroom, why are we letting this agenda in? And so we can actually take out the grooming, we take out the pedophilia, the sodomy. It's all listed in this bill. Now, your state may not want to go that far. All right. By the way, I have a whole bunch of input that's come in since we met yesterday, Mary, from Richard Harris, from Andrew Womack, from Andy Schlafly, whose mom is Phyllis Schlafly. We have Walter Weber from the ACLJ. They've all given input to tweak this and make it even better. But essentially, we've got a bill that says if Johnny or Susie comes home with any material that violates this long list of anything from pedophilia to grooming to the LGBT agenda, then guess what? They are opening themselves up to a lawsuit. And just like with the Texas heartbeat bill, and Senator Hughes, I got to tell you, when I had read the Texas heartbeat bill, I'm getting ready to testify for it. And I was actually laughing in my room out loud because it said that we can sue them and we can get the legal, and if they sue us, they can't get legal fees. But if we sue them, we can get legal fees. And I'm laughing. I'm like, can we even do this? Well, we can. That bill's upheld. The court did not strike it down, and that same kind of language is in here so that we're not opening up parents to legal fees. So it's just a bill that says again, if you do this, then you will be held accountable, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a librarian, or whether you are an advisor to the gay club on school, whether you are someone who brings in an outside speaker or the outside speaker. We are going to be able to say, if there is grooming, a lawsuit is looming.
You're gonna have to take a cold shower after listening to that.
I keep thinking is what they so often lack is the evidence. I mean, do they have any actual concrete examples of any of this?
But that's not.
Nobody gives them that.
See, the United States, our judicial system is based on the accusatory system. And it's been from its foundations. So over in Europe, a lot of courts over there, judicial systems are based on inquisitory. They gather all the evidence, and that's how their system works. Ours, it's just an accusation. Think back to the satanic panic of the 1980s, and the anti-D&D stuff that was going on back then, or even the daycares issues that were going on with when all you had to do was make an accusation, and public opinion ran how it went. So the Little Rascals Daycare in North Carolina in the 1980s, or the McNamara case out in California that ruined an entire family that owned a daycare. Just an accusation was all that's needed, and that's what they were playing on. It's the same kind of same game, and the same kind of rules new game. That's all.
Yeah, and it's all subjective.
Yes.
You know, they're like, we're gonna get rid of the pornography, the pedophilia, the grooming, and it's all stuff that they make up.
Right.
Yeah.
It's whatever they decide.
Right. And that's what the book bans. And she said, she talked about the libraries, well, the school libraries went first. But what have you been seeing with school libraries? A lot of places are pulling school libraries out of their schools. Washington local schools, no school libraries in Washington local school district in this area here. Toledo Public Schools still has school libraries, but I think in a lot of ways it's the safeguard so that they're not having to pull books and get into that big fight. So they're going to go and comply in advance by pulling them out there, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and like I said before, I think when we talked about this previously, is that parents can know what their kids are learning in school. All they have to do is call. All they have to do is make an appointment. Superintendent or the principal will visit with you. You know, parents have the power, and these right wingers are trying to get all this stuff passed by telling parents that they don't have the power. You know, they not only can show up anytime and talk to teachers, you know, if they make appointments, but they have the ballot box. They can choose their district people to run the school board. They can vote on levies or not vote on levies. They have a lot of power. You know, it's just like they do that. They just anyway. But I wanted to show this one last clip here. This is, I think, yeah, this is about the people in the military.
When it comes down to it, they don't care about the trans people, really, one way or the other. They're just using them as an ends, a means to justify the ends, whatever other agenda that they're working on.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order today that the Department of Defense to revise the Pentagon's policy on transgender service members. It could lead to a ban on transgender troops serving in the military. It's already seeing legal challenges. GLAAD Law and the National Center for Lesbian Rights filed a federal lawsuit today in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia against the Trump administration on behalf of 6 active duty transgender service members. So joining me now, Lambda Legal Counsel and Director of the Non-Binary and Transgender Rights Project, Sasha Buckert, along with transgender service member Emily Schilling, call sign Hawking, as I understand, currently U.S. Navy Commander and Aerospace Engineering Duty Officer. Welcome to both of you. It's a tough day for this issue, certainly from your perspective. And Sasha, I want to begin with you first. On this latest executive order, Trump signed an executive order limiting gender-affirming care for individuals under 19, any federal involvement in such a thing. My question when I saw it was, how much impact does that have? What is the federal role in gender-affirming care for minors and Trump's executive order purporting to stop any federal involvement in it?
Yeah, it's completely unconstitutional. It violates the Equal Protection Clause. This is the same care that's provided on a routine basis for non-transgender people on a regular basis, and to deny to transgender people discriminates on the basis of sex.
So, Emily, let me turn to you. So this is an order, and I'm looking at it. The language is very harsh. I would read some of it, but I don't see the need to repeat it. It is directed at you. That you have a false identity and all these kinds of things. When you heard about it, and if you've taken a look at it, I just want your reaction when you saw it. Given that you wear the uniform of the United States, you serve our country, how do you feel?
Yeah, Terry, first off, these views are my own and don't necessarily reflect those of the DoD or the United States Navy. Look, I just want to keep serving. I'm at 19 and a half years. I have 60 combat missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm a certified test pilot. Flown over 21 airframes, 1,700 flight hours in aircraft like the F-18 that you saw in Top Gun 2. I just want to keep doing my job. I'm looking to do another 10 years, and hopefully I'm able to do that.
2 questions, I'll put them in one. Why'd you sign up? And have you ever had trouble with your comrades in arms?
Yeah, first off, the military is a family business. I grew up around jets. When I was in elementary school, Blue Angels were practicing overhead every single day. It was my dream from being a kid. So after I graduated from college, I joined up and I was lucky enough to have the grades to get selected to jets and then go on to do those tours in Afghanistan.
And Sasha, when you looked at this order from a legal perspective, look, this has been a kind of, you guys have been in a ping pong situation. One administration does this, the next administration does this. This is something more though, it feels.
Yeah, it's shameful. The rhetoric, it follows the kind of rhetoric we saw during the campaign, targeting transgender people in line with what we saw with the executive order you just mentioned. And, it ignores the fact that transgender service members like Emily have been serving, for at least 10 years in every environment you can imagine in every MOS possible, whether it's a combat pilot, intelligence officer, you name it. We're talking about millions of dollars that have been invested in trans service members, and the number of years people have served is uncountable. The justifications are zero within the executive order for the ban. It's just name calling, and it doesn't talk about combat readiness, which is belied by the experience of people like Emily that have been serving with this
and valor in austere environments all over the world.
Well, I am going to bring up the justification for Trump and the Secretary of Defense doing this is that your military readiness and people like you, trans people's military readiness, is compromised by either some kind of treatment or medication that you have, and that makes you not as fit to serve from their perspective. How do you answer that?
So Terry, I'd like to speak about myself.
Great.
So I'm fully qualified to fly an F-18. That means I'm medically qualified to do one of the most extreme things you can do in the military. They trust me with this $100 million plus airfreight. Because I was one of the early transgender individuals to regain that flight clearance, of course I went through psych evals and physical evals because they should be medically conservative. But I passed every single one. And I've been doing the same job for almost 20 years now. Throughout the world, we have troops currently deployed who happen to be transgender in every theater, and they keep showing up every single day fully qualified.
They look up to you, I imagine. What are you hearing from people concerned that they will lose, something that they love? They signed up to serve the country?
Yeah, Terry, it is amazing. These troops are resilient. As president of Sparta, I oversee about 2,200 members who are all active duty or reserve transgender troops. Every single one of them is looking to put their boots back on and keep showing up and doing this nation's business.
All right, well.
I'd like to touch on the harm that this causes to the military and readiness overall. Removing people that are serving actively and honorably, sets back the military and undermines national security, and it would be really harmful overall for the country.
All right, Sasha Buckert, Emily Schilling, Hawking. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your contribution and ability to inform us on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, thanks, Terry.
Well, I was just happy that they had actual people that are affected by it talking about it. Sometimes they don't do that. Sometimes they'll have our defense coordinator guy or whatever. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that there is a group called the Center for American Liberty that is based in Pittsburgh. And it's run by, it was founded and executive director is Hamit Dillon, and she was just appointed or she's been appointed, subject to confirmation as Department of Justice's head of the Civil Rights Division. And it says that the Center for American Liberty, which claims to be fighting a coordinated assault on our civil liberties from corporations, politicians, socialist revolutionaries, and inept or biased government officials. An investigation by The Guardian in 2023 reported that the nonprofit paid Dillon's law firm more than $1.3 million, while the nonprofit was also paying her an $120,000 salary for working 2 hours per week. Dillon's unsuccessful 2022 effort to replace Ronna McDaniel as chair of the Republican National Committee was backed by MAGA figures like Charlie Kirk, who has called the 1964 Civil Rights Act a huge mistake. That same year, she seemed to promote right-wing conspiracy theories circulating around the violent attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. And so she's going to be in charge of the Civil Rights Division. And the reason why I bring that up is because I have a couple of, I get emails from a couple of groups like Prager University, and I'm getting one from the Center of American Liberty, and they sent out a fundraising email written by Riley Gaines. That's the swimmer that's anti-trans and begging for money, and it came from the Center for American Liberty. So these are some real nice people. And yeah, like Derek said, or like they said here too, is, they want to establish their own agenda in people. The other thing I didn't add on here because it just happened was that Trump signed an executive order banning trans women and girls from sports completely. 10 people. It's not. Yeah, it's less than 1%. Yeah, I know, and they had it looked like a scene from The Handmaid's Tale with all these young girls gathered around him as he's signing it.
Those 10 people are going there.
Yeah, they're ruining our country. And, and so what I'd like to do is, oh, I forgot. There was one other thing about Dylan, Parmeet Dylan. It says, like a number of notorious far-right figures, Dylan was connected to the Dartmouth Review. While she was editor-in-chief, it published a column denounced as anti-Semitic for comparing the university's Jewish president to Adolf Hitler. So these are some real fine Americans. And, but the one thing I wanted to do was one of the actions that our board took is that we adopted this resolution in support of the LGBTQ plus community. The 16 national secular groups wrote this letter and we signed on to it. And the pull quote I have on here is, "We will not permit religious extremists to foment a moral panic, encourage harassment or violence, enact dangerous policies that seek to force LGBTQ plus Americans generally and trans Americans in particular out of public life and out of existence, nor will we sit silently or ignore when the talking points, misinformation, and outright fabrications of anti-LGBTQ plus extremists are laundered and given a veneer of legitimacy or acceptability by those who hold themselves out as voices of reason or science." And I don't know if people have been following what's been going on, but biology professor Jerry Coyne wrote a rebuttal to a somebody that had written a blog post on FFRS website talking about supporting the LGBT community. So he decided to take it upon himself to get this screed, this anti-trans screed published. Caused a big brouhaha. He was the he was an honorary board member of FFRF, along with Steve Pinker and Richard Dawkins. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do not like any of those guys. Yes, they've done some great things for free thought in the past. They're scientists. They do good. They have done good work. But they are terrible human beings. They are terrible human beings. And I can tell you that as long as I'm in charge of this group, we are not going to support those three. We're not going to support anybody that denigrates a community, no matter what community it is. You know, we're not going to give them a platform. We're not going to have a debate because there's nothing to debate. You know, LGBT people are humans. They deserve a basic humanity, and I am not going to put up with people that don't. So I'm saying that if you don't think that that is your vision for your humanism, then probably this is not going to be the group for you. Because I'm just not doing it anymore. I'm just not tiptoeing. I know years ago, we had somebody visit with us who was quite wealthy, but he had terrible ideas about women and about the trans community. And somebody was asking me, well, what if he gives you a check? And I kind of hedged. I can tell you today that if that guy gave me a check, I would return it. Because I'm just not doing it anymore. You know, friends of mine have been hurt. There looks like there's a lot more people that are going to be hurt. And for the people that voted for Trump, I really want to say I told you so. You know, I was talking till I was blue in the face about Project 2025. And people still voted for that guy. I was looking at some Facebook comments the other day about something else. And this came up and somebody said, what's Project 2025? And I was just like, you know, that's the thing too that I want to stress is, yes, politics sucks. I don't like following politics. I wish I didn't have to, but you have to know what's going on. You have to know what's out there, what's going on, because a lot of these people like that Janet Porter and Trump and those guys, they don't want you to know about stuff. They want to work in the shadows. And then one day you're going to wake up, it's going to be like those genealogists that say, hey, the records are missing. You know, what happened?
Archivists.
Huh?
Are you talking about the archivists?
Yeah, the National Archives.
Right.
Right? And just in the news today or yesterday, that woman that's now the Attorney General is going after private companies, threatening to sue them. Our Attorney General, David Yost, who's running for governor, signed on to warning letters to private companies that they need to get rid of DEI. Private companies. You know?
So much for the no governmental interference.
Right, no regulation, no regulation. They don't like regulation. No, they just don't like the regulation they don't like. So,
Yeah, small government, that's what they're all about.
yeah. But it's like, if you look at Project 2025 book, it's happening exactly as they wrote about it.
People looked at that and they said, oh, that's very extreme. It'll never happen here. Our legislators won't let that happen. I mean, we have relatives too. We talk about these things and they're in agreement, you know, with us about so many things here, but yet, oh, it'll work out.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, yeah.
It's difficult to put yourself on the line, especially in your social situation and with relatives who are always in your face and, or people who might give an organization you support, they might give them money. Yeah. It is very difficult to do that.
And I get that, and I'm not telling you have to do anything. You know, I'm not telling you to get your pitchforks and torches and storm the Capitol, because you'll probably get a pardon anyway. But
We would.
no, we wouldn't. That's right. Yeah, I had to remind somebody. I said, remember the Black Lives Matter protest in 2020? He called out the entire law enforcement, everybody, to protect the monuments and all that bull crap. Anyway, but that, and related to that, some of the people he's pardoned were anti-abortionists that got convicted for federal offense for blocking abortion clinics. And he's ordered the Department of Justice not to enforce that law anymore. So now the people here in Toledo, at the clinic here in Toledo, they're concerned that somebody's going to try to do that. You know, and because his minions would be the people that would do that. So anyway, so as you can tell, it's got me riled up. The whole thing's just got me riled up. And the other thing, side business, and I'll let everybody else weigh in, is you got to take care of yourself too. You know, don't do the doom scrolling. I tend to do that too. I made the mistake of watching the Rachel Maddow show the other night, and it just bummed me out. So, you know, you got to know when to do something else.
I get my news from Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, that's good enough. Yeah.
I've been cutting back both on reading the news and scrolling.
Well, I don't watch the national news anymore because they betrayed us, because they just treated Trump like just any ordinary candidate.
Same washing.
Yeah, same washing is what they called it. And yeah,
which we get whatever. You can see, you know, I'm looking at some of these headlines, and it's like they're sort of watering down their own rhetoric against, say, you know, some of the more extreme right wingers, and sort of by their wording, you give things credibility. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Trump should have had his hand behind his back with his fingers crossed. I mean, you should just do that because, you know, you can't trust anything he says. But then, you know, the newspaper headline is Trump's stance on his policy, what policy, what stance? I mean, these newspapers from their headlines are making it seem like there's some validity
Right.
to what these people are doing. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it is.
And, yeah, it's been.
Yeah, it's like what I said about like the people like Jerry Coyne is there's some things that aren't debatable. They don't need a platform. And if it's racist or any of that stuff, it needs to be called out. And, you know, we used to do that. And now they don't because they don't want people complaining. And a lot of these news media, they're owned by 6 companies. And they do business with the government and they don't want any trouble. So that's what they're doing is they're watering down a lot of stuff that they talk about.
They pulling like funding for some of these media. I read something yesterday.
Well, it turned out it started out to be a false. Originally, the reporter that reported it was Politico was getting, they claimed $8 million a year from the government in subscriptions. Turned out it wasn't. It was like $100,000.
And even then, that was legitimate.
Yeah, it was legitimate people signing up. Yeah.
Because they do have other news organizations as well. And but one thing that they are doing is they're investigating, they're putting in, or doing an investigation of public, PBS and NPR. They're being targeted.
Yes.
Because of the advertising that they.
Which they forced them to do because they kept cutting their funding. Yeah.
CPB. Center for Public Broadcasting.
Oh, and then there was Hemant Mehta, the Friendly Atheist, had an article about the task force to root out anti-Christian bias in the government. And all the examples that Trump gave in his little speech didn't happen or were mischaracterizations of what happened.
So, and that also goes in line with the PBS and the news media going down. That also goes in line with the press corps being rolled, so that that the White House press corps is no longer going to have like, I guess it's ABC, NPR, some of these others, and they're putting in Breitbart and some of these others are really not legitimate news sources. One America is another extreme right wing.
Doing that at Pentagon too.
Yeah.
Rotating out the news coverage, the representatives. Although they are including Huff Post, so just to try.
You gotta throw a little nugget in there once in a while, but make it look like you're not being biased.
Well, and just take notice of whether it's an opinion piece or it's going to be actual news. So many things come across that are actually opinion pieces that people take as actual news. Yeah.
Well, but the other thing that right wingers do, I found, is if you cite data that supports your position, they just dismiss it. Well, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
You can't trust that.
I mean, all those scientists said this, but that's your right.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll throw whatever you throw at them, they'll accuse you of the same thing.
Yeah, it's like they'll play up some undocumented person murdering a white woman, but they'll ignore the pastor that got arrested for child pornography. You know, they ignore that part. And they do that. They do the anecdotal stories to prove that they need to get rid of everybody.
So one thing I've been doing is on a lot of the sources that I'm on, Blue Sky, or a lot of media that I'm on, or social media. Blue Sky, I'm still gonna be posting on Facebook because I do have family and friends that's the only way I can contact them. But I make sure that I put out information that is factual, that's countering that narrative, and making a comment on it every time, even if I'm just putting just a sentence in there, pushing back on the lies essentially that are being promoted. And I figure if everybody does that, pushes back on all those different platforms and puts that information out there, that it will eventually start to cut through the noise that's out there.
My first question always, what's your source?
Right.
Right.
And
If your source is, well, I heard it from a guy on the radio.
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't accept it.
Exactly. And so if you're keeping within your little group, within your sphere of family and friends, then they'll tell their family and friends that are beyond outside of your bubble.
It could be.
And so hopefully it continues to build that way.
Or they'll do like my sister did and cut you out.
Well, that's a
completely.
possibility too. I have family members that have thought.
They might.
And that's
Well, my problem is, okay, I know, I read a lot, so I feel that my opinions are informed, but I can't always cite, when people are in my face, arguing with me or whatever. I guess the other thing I try to do is maybe give them a link to
right, and that works.
something
That's part of it.
that, they could read. Maybe that's no sense at all. I mean, I don't know how many people really are gonna go there. But I think asking for their sources, like,
I always try to have those kind of arguments on mine, so,
yeah,
I can go look somewhere else and cite an actual source.
yeah,
Yeah, I should just respond.
Argument.
Look it up.
yeah.
Take the time to find the sources that you want to push back on with their narrative.
I was having a discussion with Christmas about immigration, she was spouting all the usual Fox News points, and I said, well, first of all, I just feel that if somebody needs help, we should help. I'm saying this to a supposed electrician. Somebody, and these people need help. That's why they're here. They're not here to commit crimes. And I had to tell her, because she didn't know that that documented immigrants have a lower crime rate than citizens. And
That's just your opinion.
yeah, well, and then I came across an article that I tried to send to her, but I don't have the email. But there was an article that I saw just after that saying, they do pay their share of taxes. And so it's just like they're not living off our taxpayer dollars.
My sister-in-law always asks the question, what would make you send your children thousands of miles so they have a life? I mean, these people aren't doing this because, their life is so wonderful that they just want to come conquer us. They're doing it because everything's so miserable where they are. And you gotta think about within each family, what would make you do that? Raise children.
And the other, that argument too about immigrants taking all of our jobs. Which ones? Have you applied for those jobs? I mean, I can tell you that working at AT&T, yeah, there were a lot of technicians with the, HB1 visas, whatever. Well, that's because the company couldn't find people educated enough in that systems work. And so they went out of the states. Well, how many of these racist white guys out there are applying for those jobs? And how many are applying for those jobs in the fields that these financially low-level immigrants are taking and leaving the fruits of,
The other follow up with that is, okay, so they are hiring as undocumented. Who's hiring them? And why aren't they being prosecuted?
Sean, do you want to make some comments? Sean?
Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to say it's encouraging. This is the first gathering of what I'm assuming I'm judging here. I'm making presumptions. All cisgender, straight, white people that are showing up today. This is important, just showing up. I realize that we're in a closed group that happens to be open to the public, but and it's hard to go out into the world with the things that we share today. But I think when we realize our community and that we can rely on each other for support, it makes it a little bit easier to do that. Me going out into the world as myself is easier to do because of people like you that are sitting here and taking in the information, sharing your thoughts, exchanging ideas, and kind of shoring yourselves up for the reality of the America that we live in right now. One of the things that a couple things I wanted to throw out there, and I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I just wanted to reiterate how important these things are. We're hearing a lot about people are afraid, trans people are afraid, non-binary who actually fall under the trans umbrella, whether you realize it or not. A lot of them don't realize it. It's not just about fear of losing rights. It's not just about fear of lack of access to safe spaces and appropriate health care. It's not just about the things that are being purported as being actual facts. It's about our very existence. They're trying to erase us as genocide. And when they are done with us, they're not done. We're just low-hanging fruit because even people on the left don't understand it. So they're willing to push it aside and not deal with this narrative in hopes that they'll just move on to something else that's easier for them to deal with. The thing is, what's next could be them. It's about the attack on our dignity. It's about the attack on our character. It's personally, it hurts to know that I served my country and I served honorably. I am an honorably discharged veteran. And so over the last couple of weeks, my character of service and discharge have been dishonored. And I know it's not the same, but I just want to remind people what we did to veterans when they came back from Vietnam. And we dishonored their service. And it's not the same. I understand that, but it hurts like that. Also, what about all the flipping pornography and vulgarity in the Bible? And I'm just going to leave that go. All of this, all of this attack on transgender, non-binary people serving in our armed forces, coupled with the upheaval that is happening to our constitutional rights within the country, makes us vulnerable. And I mean vulnerable to the entire world. If we cannot stand united and strong, we become vulnerable to every other force in this world. And that's not even talking about just removing people from the service. I mean, just how our nation is dealing with any of this makes us vulnerable. Here's another thing. All of these attacks seem to be on trans women, and that is because they feel that there are people with penises going into women's bathrooms and women's locker rooms and other private women's spaces, and that we have to protect women. First of all, for the first 54 years of my life, I have lived outwardly as a woman. And I will tell you that there is not a trans person that I have met yet in my life that I feel that I need to be protected from. Generally speaking, I don't feel that I need to be protected. I can handle myself just because I happen to have been born with female genitalia and a couple of ovaries and a uterus and 2 useless teats that hang off of my chest do not make me vulnerable to men. Period. I've spent my whole life learning how to defend myself against men. Every girl has. My 4-year-old granddaughter is already being taught how to defend herself against men by learning at the age of 4 to say no in no uncertain terms and to defend that no. And girls will always have to do that because of the way men are raised in America. What they don't think about is the fact that within another year and a half or 2 years, I'm going to be that man that you don't want to force back into a woman's bathroom. It's not just about people with penises going into women's bathrooms wearing dresses. But what about those of us like me that are going to get forced back into women's bathrooms and I've got a penis hanging off of me? Is that what you want? Is that what they want to see? They got it all wrong. They've missed a lot. Going back to about the records at the National Archives, I have recently, within the last 3 months, attempted to retrieve my medical records because I want to know what I was immunized against when I was in the service before I went to Hawaii and before I went overseas. I was never told, and I feel like I have a right to know these things. They can't find my medical records at the National Archives. Not sure where they are. I got a feeling that they have moved them somewhere along with everyone else who has ever served at Fort McClellan. And even though there isn't a class action lawsuit yet, I think that probably that's what's happening. You guys were talking some about social media and following news sites. If you're specifically interested in learning or keeping up to date about transgender issues, Erin Reed, ERINREED, Erin Reed in the morning. She's on Substack and Blue Sky. She is a trans woman who reports on trans issues. She has access to information through the White House, through the Pentagon. Her wife is a state representative from Montana, and she does an excellent job of reporting facts that are solid and informative. She cuts out all the bullshit and just gives you the facts. Also, just remember these 3 things. It's hard to do. It's harder than you think. Unfollow, unfriend, and block. You do not have to embrace the harmful narrative. Ignoring it, you're not going to change some people's mind. If they say they want to engage in a purposeful discussion about facts, that's one thing. But if they just want to troll, you got to learn the difference between trolling and discussing. And if they're trolling, unfollow, unfriend, and block. That's all I have.
Yeah, I'll have, I'm going to create a resource page on the website. Probably sometime this weekend, I'll put some stuff up for people that want to get more information. And I second that about the, unfriend and unfollow people. After the election, I think I have quite a few conservative friends. I normally don't mess with it. I just ignore what they say sometimes. But after the election, I actually unfriended about 8 of them, including one guy. He would make these snide comments about Caitlyn Jenner. And I was just like, I just can't. And people like us who like to discuss things and debate things and deal with facts, that's great. But like I said, this is an issue should not be debating. The basic humanity of somebody or some group, that's not up for debate. That's how we got the Holocaust. Believe it or not, that's how the Holocaust came about, is because they debated, how can we get rid of all these Jewish people? And so, yeah, we're not doing that. But yeah, so those are very good information, a lot of stuff that he said about that. And again, like I said, people aren't going to be 100% on board with a lot of things, but like I said, this is about a group of people. And I think we need to be compassionate and have mercy. Using that God talk. Oh, and the ironic thing is, they do that task force about the anti-Christian bigotry. I wonder if they're going to investigate everybody that went after that Episcopal minister that asked Trump to have mercy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just had, one comment, just one. You made a comment a while back about doom scrolling, and it's very, very easy to fall into this, to just to wallow in how bad things are. But keep in mind, I remind myself on this. Trump exclaims about the historic landslide and this and that. He did not even win a majority of the election. He barely, just barely.
Less than 1%, yeah.
Won a plurality. So when you think things are terrible, remember that over 50% of the people you meet did not vote for him. And one of every two people who meet is not as horrible as he is. And it's true, right now, he and his cronies control the levers of government. That's the way this electoral system works. But 50% of the country did not vote for him. I just keep that in mind.
And that's not, so it's 50% of the vote, those that voted. So there was about, what was it, a third or 2/3 of the president did not vote.
I think about 60% voted.
Oh, 60% voted, okay, so it's the other way around, 1/3 of the people did not vote whatsoever. So it could be even, it's even smaller.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, look at the number of thousands of votes that Republicans suppressed. I'm getting to the point where I think my signature on my ballot is all that matters. How it got there, okay, irrelevant. Whether I dotted the I on this page, irrelevant. You got my ballot, you got my signature. And how many people have had their votes invalidated because we have all this rigmarole about which envelope is in here and how is it addressed. I mean, it's almost like.
If they supported democracy, they'd make it easier to vote.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd almost, what is it, Australia, that fines people if they don't vote?
There's a lot.
I mean.
Well, yeah, there's a debate on that. I probably wouldn't go that far, but I know what you're saying, yeah.
But, to say that, to get after you and say, yes, vote, instead of, hey, this group don't vote.
But I will say though, I've gotten pushback on occasions when I've encouraged people to vote. They're like, well, don't vote shame. And I'm like, well, if you don't, then you get this, what we're going through right now.
Okay.
And nobody voted for Elon Musk.
No,
Yeah,
nobody
no,
did.
no.
Nobody did. No.
American citizen.
Yes, he is. He's naturalized.
Yes.
Yeah. But he's naturalized, so they could revoke it.
He wasn't born here.
No, he wasn't born here. No,
And he wasn't a student when he had a student visa.
no.
There's a question
Now it
So
doesn't
that was
matter if you
illegal.
are born here because they want to get rid of birthright citizenship.
Right.
And there was a
There you
question about
go.
his visa, that he had let it lapse.
Right.
Apply for his citizenship and still allow him to.
And he has many, many children. That
They get rid of birthright citizenship. Are any of us citizens then?
No, and actually, the reality is with that birthright citizenship back in the so that was 1860.
Yeah, the 14th Amendment.
Right, the 14th Amendment, when that went through, that did not apply for Native Americans still. That didn't happen until 1924.
And that was the argument they used in court, Trump used in court to undo birthright. He said, well, it didn't apply to Native Americans. I'm like, well, there's a lot of things that didn't apply to Native Americans back then.
Right, but then we ended up finally
Yeah,
rectifying.
yeah, now they're all citizens.
So they are American citizens. And then on top of it, but one thing I'd like to bring to the group is some positive.
Okay.
You got so much
Yes,
negative.
yes, we need some positive.
So, I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on with North Carolina. They had, they had they were running for, state Supreme Court, these two justices, or two candidates for, Supreme Court justice in the state of North Carolina. And the Republican, he sued because he felt that it was unfair that he had lost. And so he wanted to invalidate about 60,000 votes. And most of those, many of those they were overseas votes from military, from those that are serving active military and such. He lost his case as of yesterday. He ended up losing his case. The Democrat who was that was opposing him is who had more vote, who won more of the votes there, is going to be serving on their state Supreme Court. Another thing, two of the cases that were brought up through the judiciary, some federal judges have already blocked so you have those that are familiar with USAID, and all the attacks going on there right now that Doug was talking about. 2,000 of those employees are they've stopped. They've temporarily stopped them from being fired at this point.
Yeah, put on leave. They were put them on leave.
Right. So, and then there was another case that came up, and I'm blanking at the moment. It was another ruling that he was trying to go for, and they held on to it. Oh, it was the birthright citizenship. Indefinitely that was that's been on pause. That's put on pause indefinitely. To be able to
and the access to the treasury payment system too. They clamped down on that again.
So that's three.
Yeah.
4 things that you're talking about, 4 different aspects, but it's I mean, it's slow. The courts are a little bit slow because that's how it's designed.
Yeah.
But in other ways, people are making differences, and there's a lot of groups, a lot of people that are pushing back across the country. All you have to do is find those groups, join up with them, and make those, make your voices heard. The Congress, congressional staff, the phone lines are in meltdown.
Yeah.
Right. They can't keep up with all the calls.
Something like 1 million calls they've gotten into Senate switchboard.
Senate, our own state's senators now, Marina and Hurst, Houston. Sorry. Their phone lines are constantly being buzzed right now. The problem is that what I've been hearing from one of the groups that I'm with, that's outside of our show here, is they're hearing when they get a hold of one of the random staffers, they've been getting they're being yelled at by the staffer. They're being hung up on. They're being laughed at for bringing up any of the issues that are coming up. And it's just, and I'm kind of wondering, I mean, I think what we should probably be doing is telling them right as they pick up that phone is I'm going to be monitoring this call for my own protection as well, and record them. As long as they hear that you're recording them, then whatever they say, you can turn around and probably put out, in social media.
Yeah, I called like the first day, was like a Monday or something after all this crap hit the fan, and tried to call Moreno's DC office and couldn't get through. So I called his Cleveland office, and the person was very nice to me, but I'm sure that they're not anymore because they're getting hammered.
Right.
Because they do, if you call the staff, they have to record the call and that you called, what issue you called, and what your zip code is, and all that stuff, because they have to know that. So
I have good information that just came in.
What was it? I'm sorry, just a minute. What, Sean?
I just saw this notification from the National Park Service, the AMPS. a federal judge in New York has just granted a temporary restraining order in favor of the state suing over DOGE. The court's firm assessment is that for the reasons stated by the states, they will face irreparable harm in the absence of injunctive relief.
Okay.
And it goes on to explain further, and there is a copy of the document on their Blue Sky page. I don't know if they've posted it on their Facebook page yet. It seems like Facebook is getting the updates, but this was just 5 minutes ago they posted this. So
Thank you.
there's a positive for you.
Seems to me like even if some of the things that their goals might be good ideas to a lot of people, like cutting government spending, just the way that we're going is just so chaotic. I mean, they're just like shoot first, ask questions.
It's not database.
Fire everybody and then hire back the ones that, okay.
Yeah, trying to freeze Medicaid or delay the process for Medicaid, they don't recognize that that actually does help veterans that are veteran families and such, and military, and those in the active military that receive those benefits.
Yeah, there was some agency or something, they fired everybody and then they had to hire somebody back to process the firings.
They're wasting.
Yeah, right.
Well, let me ask you, you're tied into things going on more than we are. Democrats, where are they?
They're pushing back. They've been out
I
there.
mean, I can't
they've-
imagine.
They've tried to go into several of those offices lately, like the Department of Energy and other, and they're being stopped from being able to enter those buildings. A couple of nights ago, they held an all-night session on the congressional floor. And yeah, to try to block,
That Vault guy, the guy that wrote 2025.
right, for his nomination, and they held an all-night, talk on that. I mean, still got through, because the Republicans at this point, they're not the one, they're the ones that are actually, the Republicans are the ones that are actually causing these, that just go hook, line, and sinker on this, following their leader. The Democrats, we could give them more support, and I think we should. I think we should reach out to their offices and tell them, thank you, keep up the good fight. Where even Marcy Kaptur, for all her faults, we can still, because she's still trying on behalf.
Yeah, she put out a statement or she emailed it out to.
Right, and Michelle Corinne, for even our local representative here, she's making a push within the state itself. So as long as we tell them that we support what they're doing, that gives them the energy.
Yeah, that's the other good thing too, is call people and say, hey, thanks for doing that. You know, be positive, yeah.
And then reach out to the Moreno and these others and just hammer them for what their choices are. And there's groups like the Red, Wine and Blue, which is that's mostly a women's organization here, a national organization.
Women centered, yeah.
Right, women's centered organization, although men can join with that as well, have been making huge. Right, yeah, and then, but they have their own offshoots of that. They have called Troublemaker Nation, which here in Toledo we have a couple of them. We have the Northwest Troublemakers, Northwest Ohio Troublemakers, and then there's also the Toledo Troublemakers. And you can find information on those as well.
There's Honesty for Ohio Education. They're going after that anti-DEI bill that got introduced, yeah.
Toledo Persists is another one, and actually they're trying to put together a protest rally in front of some of the offices there, where these Republican leadership offices are at.
And the other thing about Democrats is we have great leadership among the older members of our parties too. But, and I can't imagine they're not, getting together and planning some kind of strategies, etc. But seems like you don't really hear about that.
That's because the media.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah, they did, there was a couple of them that tried to get into certain agencies and got blocked.
Right.
And they briefly mentioned it.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
On the news, they just briefly mentioned it and moved on. Yeah, they kind of undersell the opposition.
So the thing to do with that is, if you're on Blue Sky or the Reds or anything like that, or any social,
follow them.
Yeah.
And that way you can get information direct from them as to what they're doing. I used to follow he was a member of the House of Representatives from North Carolina, Phil Jackson. And now he's their Attorney General for their state. And I still follow him online because he's one of the younger young Democrats that's coming up. And they're fighting at all levels. The problem is the cameras, like Doug was saying, it's just not.
No.
Yeah, I've said this before, when I used to work in the newspaper industry, and when I heard to hear these comments about liberal bias of the media, it drive me crazy, because it was mostly bullshit.
Right.
It was coming from the right wingers who just see anything that they don't like as liberal bias.
Right.
And if you ask the actual readers, I know this is true in Springfield, when I was working there. Our polls showed that about half the people thought that we had liberal bias, and half said we had a conservative bias. Which meant that we were really in the middle somewhere, where we belong.
The editorial page we know is biased.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
So if we're not liking the way the media is covering things, we can always reach out to their comment, to their actual editorial page, not just their editorial pages, but their own internal contacts as well. I forget what they call those.
Well, the Blade allows comments online on their forums.
Right.
And you can always do letter to editor.
Right.
For the TV stations, you can actually email individual reporters. Like there was some reporter that did a story. I can't think of what it was. It was church and state related. And I sent her an email saying, well, you next time talk about this part of it.
Right. It doesn't have to be very involved.
No,
just a few sentences. NPR, I noticed recently is starting to tone down their style of reporting. They're not as pushing back facts like they've been doing this is only in the last few days that they've been doing that. Ever since they've been brought up in under investigation. PBS is doing the same thing. The news hour is they're allowing more a right-wing bent to be able to speak without and be challenged when it comes to facts and say, well, that's not true, and this is why, and so if we reach out to them, they do have ethics boards and things like that you can reach out to and say, we're finding that the tonality of the reporters has gone down. Wow. And they will come out and write something on that and look into it and find out is it happening? Are they lowering their standards? They're reporting journalistic ethical standards there. And that's where you can get them to know that there are people that are catching that and are wanting them to be those to be the fourth estate essentially.
Well, it's also a case of not just verbal support. I mean, anybody can applaud, but put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
We're not rich, but at the end of every year, we review charitable giving, and we need to tell our financial people for the next year we want X dollars to go to these organizations. And for this year, we are contributing to Planned Parenthood. We are contributing to PBS, LGBTQ, because we just figured they'll be using their funding.
Exactly.
It's
a small percentage. It's good.
All right. Well, I think, no, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, building on that, I think it's really important. We're looking at what are the roadblocks that stop all this. One is we know Congress is not going to be doing, whether it's Senate, whether it's House of Representatives. What really right now is the legal part of it. Those are the ones, and so I think we need, whether it's again, involved very many organizations. I like a lot of the environmental defense funds, Southern Pot. We need to support them because they take legal action it takes to bring these lawsuits forward. That is, and so right now, that is a very important. And then what's the next step is how we change the political. So again, we need to be supporting those candidates who are right now coming out to be Amy Axton, who I've met for governor. We need to be contributing to them. That's one of the things we can do that I think is really important when we can't even maybe physically do other things.
Yeah,
And
the
that's important.
AHA and American Atheists
Yes.
and FFRF, they're going to be filing lawsuits when necessary. And so, you know, support those groups as well. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and wrap up for today. We have the room till noon, but I know people want to go do some other things. I do appreciate you being here tonight. And if you guys have any questions about anything that we talked about, reach out to me and we'll discuss it. If we're addressing something that maybe you're either don't feel that we're addressing it properly, or maybe we can do a better job, let me know. I'm always learning, you know, trying to be, and we'll have, like I said, I'll do a resource page for how to be a better ally and news sources that you can get stuff from. And because I really think it's important that we be that bulwark here in the Toledo area for all marginalized groups, because, you know, we're part of one. You know, the non-religious, we are part of a marginalized group, and it could be bad for us too. So we want to help people where we can. The final thing I want to say is an announcement. The podcast Glass City Humanists is on, can be heard on WAKT, the community radio station, on Tuesdays when I do a show, when I'm able to record one. WAKT is having a music jam March 16th. It's a Sunday from, I think, 2 to 6. Well, if you go to toledoradio.org, they'll have a link. It's $5 tickets, $10 at the door, and there's going to be some VIP opportunities. So it's the bands are kind of local. I'm not familiar with them, but I hear that they're good. Huh?
Can you have Leadfoot Granny?
No,
That's a
no.
good, that's a lovely.
But if you can help out, go to it. That'd be great. I'll support the work of community radio and get the support, because I'm the treasurer of the board. So it helps me do my job when we have money. So because then I can pay the bills that need to be paid. And then, of course, I can't say this legally, but if some money happens to come to our group, that'd be okay too. But anyway, so again, I appreciate everybody being here today, and I do not have a topic for March yet. So if anybody has an idea of something that they'd like to see, let me know. And thank you very much.
2025.
Yeah, I'll get you all your own book. I'll get you all books here. No, we don't want to scare people.
Oh, Doug.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to say some of you contributed to my birthday fundraiser to raise money for our pizza and a movie fund. So thank you. And did you want to update about the submission of our for the grant?
Oh yeah. Well, the money we got from the birthday fundraiser, and I don't know, when did it stop? At the end of the month?
I think they actually stopped it on the 31st. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I
so
haven't heard anything yet about them
was
releasing
it like
it.
$93 or something like that?
I think it was 103.
Oh, was it 103?
100.
Okay. So they already sent some money to us.
Okay.
So it's the kids and the free pizza thing that we do at the West Branch, the West Toledo branch. And I applied for a grant from the AHA so that we could do it for the whole year. And I asked for like $1,200, no, $1,000, because we have about $200 raised locally. And so if you want to contribute to that as well, we do other healthier snacks like carrot sticks and fruit. And then we have soda pop and water. and then the pizza, and then we have the movie. So, yeah, it's real good. Yeah, we've got about, like $93, $94 right now, so there'll probably be some more sent later from Facebook. In March, the deadline is in March, so we'll know by March. The next one that we have scheduled with the funding that we had was, it's gonna be Easter break, which is in April. Or because I figure we might as well do it that way. But if we get the grant, then we'll be able to do it every single month for the whole year. And we get like 20, 25 people show up. So families too. We've had quite a few families show up too.
And so thanks to Ann and Doug and anybody else that's been stepping in. So my schedule for work has changed a little bit and I'm not always available. But I appreciate everybody who's stepped in to help make sure that this keeps going. I feel like it's something positive for the community. And I know that we've seen, people come back month after month. So they look forward to it. And I like that we can be something in the community that people come to rely on.
Yeah, we had one young girl asking if we were showing Inside Out 2 again. I'm like, no, we have a different movie this time.
Okay.
So we show like the newer Disney stuff and been streaming it the last few times, but yeah. So yeah, it's a good program, good positive program. And so, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks for doing the Zoom, Doug. I appreciate it.
Hopefully it worked out.
It worked fine for me.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw it on YouTube and it looked like it was going okay, but I'll check the tape when I get